This is Matthew Cratter from Trader University, and today I want to talk about why Bitcoin is so good for the environment. We still see these articles all the time, these clickbait articles in the mainstream media about why Bitcoin is bad for the environment. And the main critique here usually is that proof of work mining, which is a consensus algorithm for Bitcoin, uses too much energy. I've discussed the energy aspects in multiple videos, and I will link to them below. But today I want to talk about another way in which Bitcoin is very, very good for the environment, and a lot of people overlook it. In order to understand this, we have to go back and define high time preference thinking versus low time preference thinking. High time preference thinking means I want it now. I want to spend the money. As soon as I get the money in from my paycheck, I go out and spend it right away. I'm really only focused on present pleasures, not focused on the future or deferral of gratification or savings or building up wealth. So that's high time preference thinking. I want it now. Low time preference thinking is I'm willing to defer current consumption in exchange for greater things in the future, whether this is helping to put my kids through school or having a retirement and being able to stop working at some point, or investing in new technologies, investing in charities, in helping people, etc. This would be low time preference thinking. And it's really low time preference thinking that makes the higher forms of civilization possible. When people think about multi-generational projects and they invest in the future, this is much better than high time preference thinking. If we think about what low time preference thinking looks like back from the days, especially when the world was on a gold standard, it looks like this. You don't build a cathedral in a single generation. This requires the accumulation of capital and then planning across decades, if not across centuries. So low time preference thinking creates something that's very beautiful. Of course, low time preference behavior, as apart from just thinking about it, it's only possible when there actually is a good store of value that's widely available. So for example, if you have low time preference thinking and you save a lot of money, but you save it in US dollars, or you save it in apples, or you save it in pine cones, or something like this, these things do not hold their value. Even the US dollar, which is better than most currencies, loses its 95% of its value every 50 years or so, something around that. So they're much better stores of value than fiat currency. Cash, gold is a great historical example. Real estate and stocks have really become modern stores of value where people go to avoid currency devaluation, which is caused by central banks. But the best store of value ever, the hardest form of money, the most verifiably scarce store of value is Bitcoin. And when you get into Bitcoin and you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, it begins to change you. Bitcoin changes your time preferences. Even if you used to be low time preference, it makes you even more low time preference. Now we can contrast Bitcoin culture, the emerging Bitcoin culture, with fiat money culture. And we all know what fiat money culture looks like, and it's a very ugly thing. Fiat money culture, fast money culture, is the fast food culture. It's the culture of consumer capitalism where people spend their whole lives in cubicles so they can buy junk that depreciates over time. And I don't blame individuals for behaving in this way. When you have a very sick culture, this is the kind of behavior that results from it. Even traditional holidays like Christmas are subject to being perverted by consumer capitalism, as we can see by this absolutely enormous pile of Christmas presents. So Bitcoin culture is very different. Bitcoin culture makes you think about the opportunity costs and the trade-offs of spending money. When you spend money, you're basically spending your accumulated time and your accumulated energy. Money doesn't come, it's not easy to earn money. You have to sacrifice your most scarce commodity, which is the time of your life. And then if you immediately turn around and convert that fiat money, which is just the distillation of your energy and your limited time on earth, if you convert it to junk, then you're not helping the future, not helping human civilization, and you're also not helping your future self. There's a pretty funny website here that you can try out if you bought Bitcoin instead of stupid stuff, how much money you would have. So you can I'll link to this below. You can click right here if you bought, and basically it has the release date of these items. So this is more if you bought something right when it first came out. If you bought a hoverboard, if you bought Bitcoin instead of a hoverboard, you now have $12,000. Let's see, if you bought Bitcoin instead of a Juicero, you'd have $76,000. Some of these get much worse. Let's see if we can find one that's. There are a couple of these which were. Here's one. If you bought Bitcoin instead of a Beat Solo HD, this was released in 2010, so pretty early on, you'd have $190 million. So you can play around with this and see it's a good way of thinking about the opportunity cost of things. I would say that I've never really been much of a consumer. I'm a little bit more bookish. My biggest vices have really been buying nice houses, which end up being a pretty good store value. Not like Bitcoin, but a pretty good store value, and mountains of books. But even as someone who is not too steeped in consumer culture, obviously none of us can escape it entirely, but now Bitcoin has made me even more low time preference. Whenever I buy anything, I'm always thinking of Bitcoin, even if it's I'm buying a $5 app or a $5 burger. I'm always thinking of Bitcoin and the opportunity cost involved. And I think this is one of the main reasons and one of the main ways that Bitcoin helps the environment. It creates low time preference people. It incentivizes people from buying less stuff. And even though Bitcoin has gone up a lot over the past 11 years, it still has huge returns ahead of it. Bitcoin will basically pump forever because of the way fiat currency devalues and because Bitcoin is the most perfect store of value ever created. So when you have an inventor who creates a Dyson sphere or a cure for cancer, he or she in the future will choose to store their wealth in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin really has basically infinite upside. I know this sounds completely crazy, but when you begin to think about it, you realize that Bitcoin, right now, Bitcoin adoption is so low that it has huge upside from that. But even after that, all future stores of value will be stored in Bitcoin. Bitcoin will continue to take market share from gold, from real estate, and eventually from fixed income and stale fiat cash that is earning a negative real yield. Bitcoin, when you go down the rabbit hole, when you buy a little bit of Bitcoin and then do research it more, Bitcoin changes you. And Bitcoin right now is in the process of creating a new global tribe that stretches across all countries, across all races, across all politics. And this new global tribe has low time preference thinking and thinks in terms of decades and not days. And when you think about Bitcoiners and how they lead their lives, perhaps the biggest focus that many of us are focused on is the ultimate Bitcoin citadel, which would be sort of a haven from the coming collapse or something like that. This is the big purchase, which is real estate. It often involves thinking about the future of farming and regenerative agriculture and efficient energy sources that are off-grid, etc. This is the way Bitcoin changes people, and it makes people think in terms of decades and not days. And in the process, it really helps to fight consumerism and consumer capitalism. Capitalism is great. It's the best way for allocating resources. But what we currently have is a perversion of capitalism where the fiat economy and high time preferences have destroyed the way people think about how they treat their bodies, how they treat the environment, and how they treat their precious time, which is the scarcest commodity. And this is what Bitcoin changes. Bitcoin changes people, makes them more low time preference, and makes them consume less, which is extremely good for the environment. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit that subscribe and like button. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I publish my next video. And let me know your questions and comments in the comment section below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.